Hello YouTube vintage stereo restorers. So here's the Yamaha CR-55 Canadian model. It was the black face aluminum faceplate, basically a CR-200. So it was actually near the entry level of Yamaha, but actually they were well made. I mean, I remember when these were brand new, demoing them in stereo stores. They were blowing stuff out of the water. They were just incredible. You'd say, that's only 20 watts? It was the way they were built. But here we are. Here's one of these, a 1977 model. We're almost 50 years down the road. I just did a complete rebuild on it. So I'm just kind of letting it run, burn in, see if there's any issues. Keeping an eye on the bias current. Show you what I've been through with this thing. There's the main filter right there. The two coupling casts are the speakers. This is a single rail unit, kind of rare in a Yamaha. This 3300 was testing around 2100. Everything else, all the other electrolytics were these blue Nishikons, except there were a couple of replacements in here. There are a couple of United Chemcons thrown in the mix. 7 different transistors had been replaced. Let's see if I can get it out of here. C460s and C458s. And there was a C458 that was the AM radio oscillator. It had gone open, so I had to replace that. Basically what was killing the left channel on this was a 47 microfarad cap. It had gone open. But you know, at this age, and I've done other videos about this, it's time to rebuild. You put new electrolytics, even if a few of them have been changed already. It will just sound so nice and it'll be nice and reliable. But here we are, the things we didn't expect back in the 70s and 80s when these were on the bench in the shop. You never thought, like transistors blew because somebody drove the unit too hard. Played it too loud, shorted out the speaker, whatever, it overheated. Something spilled into it, you know. We never realized that they would degrade, that we'd end up with all these noisy transistors, some that would test okay but wouldn't work right in the circuit. It just wasn't expected. I mean, solid state in 1977 had only been around a couple decades, if that. And there were some engineering things on these that were good and some that were bad. Great transformer. These were built for sound. That's the one thing I like about Yamaha. They had a unique sound. I think they're as good as a Sansui, a Kenwood, a Pioneer. They have a little bit of a sweeter sound if you listen to classical music. Even an entry level like this sounded great. But some of the weaknesses on it, you have this heatsink and the output soldered to the main board. You get hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold cycles for a number of years. And the solder joints break and the little foil lands break off the board. This had 3 of the 4 output transistors replaced in it. So I decided, even though they tested okay, to put new ones in. And there's a little fix that you do on these. Because the board is kind of fragile, you don't want to solder it too many times. You actually extend the leads, turn the transistor around, extend the leads, and then solder that to the board. So if you have to replace a transistor, you can just take the little wire leads off of the transistor at that end and not have to touch the board. And I had to do a few board repairs on this with crazy glue and some fine copper wire as well. Somebody had changed one side of the driver transistors, and it was a complete mismatch. It's like, oh, that one works, that one works. And although it worked, it didn't quite sound right in that channel. Broke up a earlier volume, lower volume. So anyway, of course, one of the weaknesses, the solder lands, but the driver transistors were not strong enough, how can I put it, did not have enough heat dissipation. They're driven pretty hard. See, the old TO220 case here. Yeah, what you need to do is use driver transistors that are metal case, like a PN2222 for the NPN side, and for the complementary PNP, a 2905, which is the metal case version of the 2907. They have a good rating, 60 volts, half an amp, and they dissipate heat a little bit better. And there's a little bit of warmth coming off there because they're driving the outputs. That was a weak point on these. Another weak point, and I like stereos that have the controls wired in rather than soldered to the board. So with the movement of the faceplate, I find after 50 years you might as well resolder all the controls back in. And there were a couple breaks on the balance control. If I pushed it and held it one way, it would drop out in the left channel. So that's fixed. Other than that, I'm just letting it burn in. I've got the bias set at 10.7 millivolts. Just to start, it's very stable. Has nice sound. Put a couple new dial lamps in it. This does not have full dial lighting. It's just the pointer and the meter. And I'll run it, put it in my main stereo, and use it as my main receiver for a while. Get some fun out of it. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening.